When I first came to Arnhem Land in 1973, I would have probably thought that that statement was correct. I'd been brought up in New South Wales, and Aboriginal people had been totally oppressed. They had all their lands taken off them. The settlers had taken over all their country. They'd been shifted around the central part of New South Wales for over 150 years. Reid's book on the 100-Year War aptly explains what happened to the Wiradjuri people of central New South Wales. But I'd been brought up on the settlers' side, so we saw the Aboriginal people as primitive, barbaric, and their punishments harsh, and so forth and so on. And having then lived after a number of years in central Arnhem Land with the Yolngu around the Rumangini area, I was surprised to find that their society was very much the difference. It was very communal, where everybody was concerned about other people rather than themselves. There wasn't this concentration on the individual and the individual's rights. There's more concentration on the communal rights. Okay, they had different forms of punishment. And the highest forms of sanctions or punishment might be thigh spearing, a spear in the thigh for having murdered somebody or something like that. And of course, the Western way of dealing with people who might be murderers or people who assault somebody or whatever, is to put them in jail. Well, Yolngu considered jail the most disgusting form of inhumane punishment that you could ever give to somebody. Locking them away in isolation from other people does not correct their behaviour anyway at all. It just makes them more angry and more violent. And they would say that is the worst form of punishment. And yet, let's look at it, thigh spearing, where a spear is placed in the side of the thigh and there's a bit of blood that comes out, and people say, oh, that's primitive. And yet Westerners will go and have their faces carved up and bloodletting flat out, to reshape their face or change their nose or whatever. And yet they say that treatment or that sanction is barbaric. I think it's just cultural, really, and how you see it. A traditional thigh spearing was very controlled, and when it was done, people would say, Bayada, Bilin, finished. It means forgiven and forgotten. You can go on and get on with life. You don't have to spend how many years in a prison cell where you just get more angry and more angry, not only about the world around you, but your own family, as it's happening to Yolngu people now. They come out very, very angry. Where traditional punishments were carried out, it'd be over and forgotten. Now, not all traditional punishments were like thigh spearing. When people came together and somebody had caused offence, families would come together and discuss it. And if that person who was a perpetrator was seen to gora luka, to eat his own shame, to be really have changed and shown that he is sorry for what he's done to the victim or whoever, people would usually forgive. And most of the time I was surprised at how many times they would forgive somebody for doing something pretty badly. I would say, oh, they still need to be punished. And they said, no, he's eaten his shame. He has eaten it totally, so we need to recognise that. And we need to now give him a chance to live life to the fullest with no more sanctions being applied against that person. So no, I don't think that's the case. I think in some Aboriginal groups, though, that are not really traditional, things like floggings and harsh punishments started to occur. Now, where did that come from? It came from the pastoral stations, where people were flogged almost to death. And that type of punishment was then taken on by those Aboriginal clans and tribes in those particular areas where the cattle stations were very strong. That was not part of traditional sanctions or punishment.